I love it. Okay, the Cowboys, always a huge draw on Thanksgiving. But this year, I heard a turkey gobble. Don't let that get past me. This year could top them all with Patrick Mahomes and the Chiefs coming to Dallas for a Turkey Day matchup with Dak and company. We'll talk about that. Schedule release happening today, okay? It's a big day. The entire schedule will be released tonight. We'll be back with you for that 8 p.m. on ESPN2. Dan Orlovsky, Louis Riddick, Peter Schrager, Adam Schefter. We had a lot to get to, guys. Everybody doing good, though?
Mm-hmm. We're doing great. Okay. We're doing great. Peter's got a three-piece
full
suit on.
house.
He's got
I love it.
He's wedding day for Peter.
Three-piece suit. It's schedule release day. It's like my bar mitzvah. Let's go.
Oh, kid's got a lot of those to go to.
What I liked about that is it was a shoulder shimmy,
That
not
was
like
it.
a
I'm
chest
excited.
shimmy.
Better than your bris.
Yeah, that probably wouldn't have
Okay,
worked.
we're going to make sure no one else shimmies as we carry on here. Let's talk about the Cowboys. They brought in George Pickens to pair with CeeDee Lamb, which is now one of the best wide receiver duos in the league. They also added Tyler Booker in the first round of the draft to bolster that offensive line. The Chiefs completely reshaped their offensive line. They'll be on the other side of that game, bringing in Jalen Moore as a free agent, drafting tackle Josh Simmons in the first round. They also expect to have Rashee Rice back for training camp. He had surgery, remember, on his knee in October. This will be the second time the Chiefs and Cowboys meet on Thanksgiving. The other was in 1995. Troy Aikman and company beat Kansas City 24-12. Dallas, of course, went on to win the Super Bowl that year, and they haven't been back to the conference championship since. New on NFL Live, Dak jumped on Dallas radio this morning, addressed the addition of his new wideout, George Pickens.
I'm excited. I mean, you turn on the tape and you see a guy that can catch the football. You put the football anywhere in his vicinity, very strong hands, more than a 50-50 catcher. He thinks it's his ball when it's in the air, and I'm excited for him. I know that we need some help in that position. I know CD needs some help, and I think when you have a guy like that, and I heard George say it, it's hard to double-team two guys, and then when you've got other guys, whether it be Ferg, Jalen Tolbert, Mingo, guys who have had reps and know how to get open in the league, I think we're putting together a nice group of weapons.
Dan, you just heard Dak addressing the idea of trying to double team both Pickens and Lamb. Just how hard will that duo make it on defenses?
Yeah, I think very, and that's why the addition of Pickens matters so much. Very rarely can you just line up defensively when I, as an offense, have really good player on one side, really good player on the other side. Lewis, you know this, and allocate 4 people to them. Because one of those guys is going to get singled up more than not. If not, then we get to run the football. And the reason why I like Tet McMillan in the draft to Dallas, and the reason why I like Pickens with the addition is CD is such a fluid, yards after the catch, win his routes, kind of get open one-on-one type of player. And then you have that big body, vertical frame opposite him. This now presents a lot of problems to defense before the ball ever gets snapped of just structurally, how do you want to handle us? And so no matter who the opponent is, I agree. I think that's one of the top 6-7 wide receiver duos we have in the NFL right now.
What's interesting about Dallas is like the conversation with them always obviously starts with Dak. It starts with the perimeter players. I mean, the things that really have plagued Dallas over the past couple of years have not been really perimeter play. It hasn't really been skill position play, you know, on a large scale. It's always been in the trenches. And for me, look, it's going to be about, look, Dallas' season is going to hinge on how this offensive line plays and how the defense plays in particular, especially right down the middle from defensive tackle to linebacker to safety. That's really going to be where their season hinges. Because I'll tell you what, Dak, look, they have a lot of advantages now in terms of athletes on the perimeter. There's no question about that. But think about their offensive line last year in terms of pass block win rate, especially when you're talking about the tackle positions. Look, Dak is now coming off of an injury. He's had 2 significant lower leg injuries now between his hamstring and his lower leg. Look, I think pass protection is going to be key. Run game is going to be key with this team before we even get to throwing the football.
Sure.
What version of Pickens are we getting? Because on the way out, it just always happens. You hear the stories. He was late for practices. He was late to games. And you start getting all that stuff out of the old play. If you're not motivated in a contract year in Big D when they're telling you, and Stephen Jones is publicly saying, like, we want you, then it might not ever happen. So for me, it's the maturity of the player. You know, CeeDee Lamb had 73 more targets than any other Cowboys receiver last year. That is the biggest gap between anyone else in the league. There are going to be balls for George Pickens. To me, it's what version of George Pickens are you getting? To me, I think you're going to get a motivated, and you're going to get a very good George Pickens from the start.
And there is so much on the line for George Pickens this year. But, Lou, you touched on the run game. I know we're talking about George Pickens here, but there are 3 new running backs in Dallas. Javonte Williams, Miles Sanders, Jaden Blue. And I think they really like Jaden Blue.
I think Jaden Blue's going to end up being the starting tailback.
I think they really like Jaden Blue in the backfield there. So I know we're devoting a lot of time to George Pickens, but I think that we're missing these 3 new running backs that play a huge new role for this Dallas Cowboys team when you're playing the Chiefs on Thanksgiving Day, when you're playing the Washington Commanders on Christmas Day, when you've got all these holiday games. I think it's a big deal, the run game.
And don't forget Phil Maffa also, who they drafted in the 7th out of Clemson, who is a bruiser now.
Right.
But again, I mean, these backs, and I don't mean to cut you off,
No,
Laura.
you're good.
It's just going to start up front, though.
Sure.
Right.
Those backs, look, Jaden Blue, look, think about how they used him at Texas, right? He was a perimeter runner, a wide zone runner, a guy who liked to get the ball in space. He's not going to be banging it up in there on the inside, right? And he's not, because one, we don't know if there's going to be a lot of space in there anyway, because we don't know how good this offensive line is going to look. And Jaden doesn't want to run in there. I'm telling you, Dallas looks pretty on the perimeter. They got speed and playmakers galore. But tell me how their offense and defensive line are going to play.
Well, they think Tyler Booker is a Pro Bowl guard that they drafted.
Yeah,
Let's
remember,
that's a good one.
If Tedero McMillan had been there,
Yeah.
that probably would have been the pick. He
Sure.
wasn't there, of course, so they said the next best player was going to be Tyler Booker, and they got their guy.
Yeah.
All right, let's talk
Yeah,
about
yeah.
the Chiefs side of things. Lewis, it felt like the entire offseason focused on rebuilding that O-line. What did you make of where they landed?
Look, I think getting Josh Simmons 32nd overall, which obviously they flopped picks with Philadelphia, that could end up being, and look, I've used this term a couple different times, but I'm going to use it one more time. That could end up being the steal of the draft. You arguably have the best offensive lineman in the draft. He was playing the best football of any tackle in Power 4 last year before he got injured. And right now, they are ecstatic where he is at in terms of his rehab right now. And he's got the best trainer in the National Football League, in Rick Burkholder, who's going to be overseeing his rehab as they go through training camp. If you, along with him and Jalen Moore, if they can go ahead and solidify the left side of this offensive line with some of the other additions that they have, remember this, keep an eye on this kid, Brashard Smith from SMU, who they drafted in the 7th. He is an Alvin Kamara clone with like 4.3 speed. They have got a lot of things going on right now in Kansas City. Hey, man, they may have addressed their issues as good as anybody.
You know, it'll be really interesting around this time of year is what version of Rashee Rice are they getting in Kansas City? I just totally remembered. You know, I almost forgot that he was on the team.
Came out great last year.
Right.
But through 8 games, he had like 80 catches.
They expect him to be healthy early.
How healthy is he? How is he back to full type Rashee Rice?
Does he get disciplined this year? Does he get disciplined?
I don't know.
Well, what do you think?
They're waiting.
I don't know. But by week 13,
Is that a rhetorical question?
do they
I know.
get that
Do
full
you
version
know?
of him?
I'm going to say you don't right now, but
Well, I think it's floating around out there. It's a
interesting.
possibility. It's out there,
As
right?
Stephen A would say, it's fluid, right? It's fluid.
But
It's fluid,
more than that would be the health. By week 13, the health. What kind of player is he?
okay, new on NFL Live. This just crossing this hour as we get games schedule release happening. We've got the slate of Christmas Day games over on Netflix. More Cowboys on the national stage for that game against the Commanders, plus an interesting NFC North matchup between the Lions and Vikings. Let's talk about J.J. McCarthy here, Dan. I mean, by that point of the season, you think that he's doing everything that they've expected him to do?
Oh, yeah.
Are they in a really good spot? You expect them to be contenders?
I fully expect J.J. McCarthy to have the Vikings very similar situation-wise to what they were as a team last year, and honestly playing very similar to what Sam Darnold did production-wise. The way he plays the position, how he is so kind of foundationally built on one hitch, ball goes here, 2 hitch, ball goes there, 3 hitch, ball goes to the check down. The play action comfort that he has. We know Kevin O'Connor, their play caller is sensational. Their offensive line will be top 5 in the NFL. The receivers are top 2, top 3 in the NFL. So I think this is the place where, you know, the quarterback has the chance to almost make the people quickly forget about how good Sam Darnold was for them last year. I fully expected them to be very much so at the top of the NFC North.
How many times do we talk about it's not where you're picked, it's where you go?
Absolutely. Who you're
And
with.
Who you're with.
Who you're with.
And exactly this is the case with J.J. McCarthy, where he went, all those pieces around him. Is there a place in the league right now that's any better at supporting quarterbacks
Philadelphia.
than the Minnesota Vikings? I mean, again, Philadelphia, Minnesota, there are a bunch of teams in the conversation, but Minnesota is right there with Kevin O'Connell, Josh McCown, the rest of that group there. And because of that, you feel a lot better about a quarterback who still has not taken a regular season snap in the National Football League. J.J. McCarthy was a great prospect coming out, but we still haven't seen him at the NFL level. But the fact that he's in that system, surrounded by the people he is, makes you feel a lot more comfortable and confident that he's going to be the type of successful quarterback that we think he can be.
There's no better situation for a young quarterback right now than Minnesota, but am I allowed to be, not skeptical, but can we wait and see? He's still 22 years old. he never was that quarterback at Michigan where he's like, let me just show, I'm going to throw us to victory. That's
but
not
he
what they
doesn't have to be in Minnesota either.
I get it, but Sam Darnold was that guy last year. In crunch time, in Seattle, he found a way to lead them. Against Chicago, goes 90 yards on the road in Soldier Field. I don't want to overlook what Sam Darnold did last year, and they actively decided we're not going to re-sign Sam Darnold, we're not going to franchise tag him, and we're also not going to go aggressively after Aaron Rodgers for a year as JJ is going to find his way. They did trade for Sam Howell, fine. But, like, J.J. McCarthy had a good preseason game, got injured. We haven't seen him since. I think that is a very tough spot given the expectations for Minnesota this year.
It's interesting risk, right? You're bringing up a great point, but also it makes you think these are some of the best quarterback evaluators in the league, some of the best coaches offensively in the league. They must see something in J.J. McCarthy still. All right, let's talk a little bit about the Lions side of things because changes there, Louis. Ben Johnson, of course, he's the Bears head coach, so John Morton now the offensive coordinator. What do you expect to see out of them, and do you see them taking a step back offensively specifically?
No, I don't. Look, obviously John Morton has some big shoes to fill with Ben Johnson, but look, I think Dan Campbell has kind of already established philosophically who they want to be. They tried to fortify their offensive line with the drafting of Tate Ratledge out of Georgia. If you throw on his tape, he's one of the most athletic guards in this draft, and he can do it all. So, look, I think philosophically this team is kind of entrenched in terms of who they want to be, how they want to play, the kind of people that they're trying to draft and they're trying to bring in there. And I think on the defensive side as well, Kelvin Shepard, it's going to be more of the same of what you saw from Aaron Glenn. Obviously, every defensive coordinator has his own style. Will he play as much man-to-man? Will he blitz and get after you as much as Aaron did? We'll see. But I think philosophically, because of how solid they are, Laura, I think this team will pick up where it left off.
I think this was one of the, if not the most detail-oriented offenses in the NFL. Not only with the creativity and the talent, but the details. They lost some of those coaches. Ben Johnson took some of those coaches to Chicago. I think that is the biggest question mark I have about Detroit offensively. Can they be obsessive with their details and their creativity like they have been in the past 2 years?
Remember when Philadelphia lost both their coordinators from a Super Bowl caliber team?
It took a year.
It took a year for them to
the
rebound.
The quarterback's coach is now the offensive coordinator of the Jets. And a lot of times they call that the brain drain when the coaches all leave. You get that from a Super Bowl team.
Antoine Randall I thought was one of the best coaches in football.
This team didn't even make the NFC Championship game last year. So you had that opportunity. They did the year before, but I think that's a fair question.
Well, I mean, they didn't make the NFC Championship game a lot of times. Well, a lot of it had to do with attrition too. I mean, they were just beat the crap.
I was just going to say there were so many
But I'm
injuries.
with you. But they sure did add some players in this draft. No, remember this name, Isaac Teslaw from Arkansas, the wide receiver too. They've got some players now.
That was a nice pickup. They took advantage of some of that depth later on in the draft.